Applying for vet school is immensely competitive. With only 10 vet schools available for you to apply to, competition for the spots is very tough. As a current vet student at Cambridge University, I'm going to offer you some tips that help me get in and that hopefully can do the same for you. So without further ado, we'll get cracking. So I think this is one of the ones that actually really goes under the radar often. I think when there's so few vet schools available, they're able to kind of be quite nitpicky about what they're looking for. And so I think what you want to try and do in your application is try and tailor it to the universities you want to apply to. So this goes both ways. First of all, you should try and adjust the unis you apply to based on yourself. So that's the first step. You look at all the vet schools, you have a look on their website, see what they're looking for. Take into consideration the location, the cost, the accreditation. Maybe you want to study abroad, maybe you want to study in Europe, maybe you want to study in America. Beyond that though, you want to look at actually what they're looking for on a personal level. You might notice that one vet school is particularly prominent at producing farm vets. They might say, we look for vet students who have no experience at all, we don't look for that. You might look at another vet school and see that they actually have no interview. This one has 2 interviews. This one has no interview but has a teamwork day. In which case you can try and work out which of these fits you best, which will give you the best chance. I've seen people apply willy-nilly, they haven't really given it much consideration, they've kind of seen what they like the look of, they said, well, this is near me, this one's far away from me, I want this one, and they've just applied. But actually you need to be far more tactical than that, because when there are so few vet places available, you need to work out which vet school is most likely to let you in. Which one do you fit their ideal the most? Now, this doesn't mean you need to fit the vet school perfectly. This doesn't mean you have to go into it and say, okay, this one asked for me to have good teamwork skills and I need to be able to communicate with clients on a regular basis. You might then say, okay, my entire application is based on this. That's not important because really your one application is going out to 4 different vet schools. So there's no point in you trying to make it drilled into one of the vet schools. What you're actually better off doing is trying to focus on each of the vet schools in little phrases, little words and phrases. So one of the things I did was I looked on the websites of the various vet schools I wanted to apply to, and I highlighted small phrases they used of what they looked for in potential applicants. And I then used those words or phrases in my own application. So maybe you find one of them says, we look for students with great integrity who have demonstrated the ability to lead teams. You don't need to copy that word for word, but maybe you look at, okay, what have I done that's demonstrated I have integrity? What have I done that shows I have the ability to lead teams? And you really copy and paste essentially what you've done that then reflects the abilities they're looking for. And that will really show that you're a perfect fit for the vet school in particular. So the takeaway from all of this really is do your research before you apply. Selecting the vet school by pulling them out of a hat. That's not the way to go about this. You need to work out which of the vet schools are most likely to take me on based on what they're looking at. And drill a little bit deeper, say, okay, this vet school has a real focus on academia. What can I do to demonstrate I'm very good at academics? This one really likes the idea of teamwork. How can I show that my teamwork skills are really up to scratch? And really start to look for these finer details that the vet schools are looking for. Work experience. Okay, this one's an absolute slog, I know. As I've said, I've been in your shoes. You'll feel like you're emailing everyone and getting either no response at all or a blunt automated reply that says, sorry, we can't have you, and it will feel soul destroying. What you can do though is try and increase your chances of getting work experience as much as possible. So the anecdote I tell all of the younger students at my school who asked me how I got in, what did I do? What I did is I printed out over a dozen CVs and cover letters that I'd personalised. Just like for the unis, I'd personalised my cover letters to the various vets in my local area. And one day after school, I got a bus ticket that took me around the local area. And I basically dished out all these CVs and cover letters saying, hi, my name's Lewis Seal, I'd love to get some work experience, I'm hoping to apply for veterinary medicine. By doing it in person, you're showing you're actually making a real effort and that you do want to get some experience. It's not a case of you just emailing in from home, because anyone can email from home. But actually going out of your way to show your face will be recognised. In the end, it was actually the very last vets I went to that decided they'd be happy to take me on. Make sure you don't get put off by the rejections. I remember a couple of the vets, not even just one, there were a couple of them that said to me they couldn't take me on because there were drugs on site, which is taking the mick, because obviously there are drugs on site, it's a vet. But you've got to get past that, you just got to put it behind you, say, okay, smile, because it's a small world, but just go at it again. Sorry, we're joined by young Bob today. Interestingly, after I applied, the clinic owner said to me the reason they were happy to take me on was because I'd gone into the clinic myself, I'd shown my face, I'd handed over my CV with a smile, and that was ultimately what led her to decide that I should get into the clinic. Hey buddy, not doing it down. I think that shows a lot. You don't need to have some elaborate plan. You don't need to come in with a cake and confetti. All you need to do is come in with a smile, do the bare minimum, act nice, show your face, and you'll be surprised what that actually gets you. Now, getting one placement is great, but the more the merrier. You might be thinking, well, where can I get experience other than a vet clinic? And there are plenty of opportunities for you to get experience. I've got a few here. You go to a kennels, a cattery, a farm, an abattoir, a zoo, riding school, charity shelters. There are so many places you can go that are just animal driven. It doesn't necessarily have to be clinical setting, because ultimately you're going to have to demonstrate you have husbandry skills, i.e. kind of looking after animals, as well as clinical skills. So the more placements you can get, the better. The more you can go to in person, the better. But ultimately, at the end of the day, don't worry how much experience you get in total at the end of your long Year 12 summer. While you don't need to have worked at every single animal setting, the thing that all the institutions emphasise is that you're able to reflect on your placements, and it's been quality placements. So you might have done 100 weeks at one vet, but if all you've done is stand on the corner, then there's not really much point to it. But if you've spent 2 weeks at one vet and a week at a farm, and at the farm you helped with lambing, and at the vets you helped hold animals for injection, then actually suddenly your experience becomes far more relevant, because you've shown that you've been able to do something. You've not only watched and shadowed, but you've also taken it on board in order to do your own practice. At the end of the day, I know that some unis ask for a lot of experience, they take the mickey with it. The point is, don't get hung up over the fact that they ask for 15 weeks. Instead, try and get some quality experience, because they all emphasise your ability to reflect on your placements. If you don't really know how to reflect on your experience, then you can actually give it a quick Google search and you'll find plenty. One of the most famous is Gibbs reflective cycle. This will take you through 6 different stages, and you kind of analyse how you're feeling each one. And the idea of these isn't that you learn these reflective cycles off by heart so you know what to say. The idea is that you can verbalise to an interviewer, or to yourself really, what you learned from that experience. It's really important that you don't just say surf level stuff. The whole point of these experiences isn't for just ticking a box, it's that you've actually learned something and you've gained an insight into the profession. So really, while you're there, ask a load of questions, try and get as much out of the people there who are willing to help you, and see if you can come away from your experience having learned something you didn't know before. Okay, if you've got through the first stage and you've survived the application process, you haven't burnt out from academics yet, well done, you should be proud of yourself. But interviews are the next stage, and these are incredibly difficult and incredibly daunting, but if you go in with the right mentality, I think you'll be just fine. So an obvious place to start is get a good answer to the obvious questions. If you search up, there are plenty of question banks you can find for vet interviews. I'll even link one down in the description if you do want to have a look at one that I used in the past. And you can use these to not necessarily have answers learned off by heart, but the best way to do it is have bullet points for questions. So the obvious ones, like, why do you want to be a vet? You don't want to have a memorised answer that you say word for word every single time, but you do want to have maybe a few bullet points of talking points that you can go to when an interviewer inevitably asks it at one of your 4 vet schools. It can't be rehearsed because you don't want to look like really artificial, but you should have a good reason for it. It shouldn't be that you're stumbling on the spot when they ask you it, because you know they are going to ask you it at some point. The question, why do you want to be a vet, I did find very difficult, and if you're struggling to find any reason at all, then I think a very good starting point is working out why do you want to be a vet instead of a doctor. That then helped me to distinguish certain factors of, okay, well, I know I want to be something scientific, but why do I want it to be about animals instead of humans? And don't give the obvious answer of, well, because I like animals, because that's just so dead. Okay, so some obvious questions you might want to find answers to are, why do you want to be a vet? And I've kind of explained that already. You might want to answer, what would make you a good vet? This is not necessarily showing that you would be a good vet, but it's showing what are the key characteristics. What characteristics are you prioritising? You know, there are so many things that go into making a good vet, but ultimately, what's the one that you have that you think will make you a better vet than the next person? Or what are the 3 characteristics that you think are most important in making a good vet? Do you think you'll be able to cope with euthanasia? Or questions about euthanasia are also quite prominent, because this is one of the things that makes vets completely different to medicine. You know, they don't have to put patients down. It does have an immense toll on vets. and it's one of the reasons why there is such a large dropout rate. They want to make sure that you're not just going to drop out of vet school at the first opportunity you have. Do practice with your friends as well, answering questions. So ask them, give them a set of questions that you prepared and get them to answer it for you. And work out how can you improvise those answers whilst following several talking points. That'll be good practice. You're not doing it for the first time when you get to the interview. Read over them just before you have your interview as well. Again, I can't emphasize enough that you don't want to be just reeling off this script every time. So the night before, maybe have a look over some of the questions you found trickier and work out what you do if that does come up. If you're interested, the first video I have uploaded on my channel is showing me from the start of year 13 right until the very end. One of the things I do in that video is show what I do just before my interview. So if you're interested in that, go check out on my channel. Okay, I hope this has been useful and that you're feeling a little bit calmer about the application process, or that you've got more clarity about what you need to do. Really don't worry about it. There are so many routes into veterinary medicine. If you put these into practice, then chances are you're going to get in first time, you won't have anything to worry about, and you'll begin your vet course, and in 5 or 6 years time, you'll be a practicing vet. And if that happens, then good for you and congratulations. But if not, don't worry, there are so many different routes into veterinary medicine. I know plenty of people in my cohort who have had a year out, 2 years out, some have even had 5 or 6 years of doing other stuff, and then they've decided to go into veterinary. So it really isn't the be all and end all, even if it does feel like it in year 12 and 13. Just keep going at it, keep your academics up, do the things I've said in this video, and hopefully it'll all come together. In the meantime, as I've said, if you want to check out what it's like to be a vet student and you want to see what I did when I applied, then check out my channel if you can be asked. But if not, I hope it's been useful, and I'll see you in a bit.